Welcome, Miss Sandra Barela. You are owner and operator and chief person in charge of a very special ministry called Celebrate Lit. In 2015, you established your organization to help Christian authors and connect readers with writers through specialized blog tours. I'm fascinated to know about your virtual book tours. Tell us a little bit about those and how you serve in a ministry to connect readers with writers.
Okay, did you want me to tell about how Celebrate Lit got started and then do the go?
Sure,
Okay,
sure.
so we got started, like you said, in 2015, and that was due to an illness of mine. I had started blogging when book blogging wasn't a thing back in way back in like 29, I think 2009. And I loved getting books and reading books. And I would wait for the next holiday so I could say, get me these set of books that I want. And I would read them. And sometimes I would be disappointed in a book. And sometimes I'd be like, oh, I love that book. And I couldn't wait to tell other people about it. And being on such a tight budget, I thought it was really important for me to be able to tell people about books and recommend great books to people to invest in. And so through that, I made a lot of Christian author friends. And um, I also then went back to school, became a teacher, became a principal, and I got sick and I had to take early medical retirement. And so I was thinking, I don't want to be at home forever doing nothing. So what could I do? So I went back to school and got a second master's degree in English. And through that, I took a marketing class and I was talking to other Christian authors about it. And one of them said, I really wanted to do this virtual book tour, but it was really expensive, like $1,500. And I said, well, let me just try it. Let me see if I could do it for you and how I could do it. And I wanted to make it different. I wanted it to be where readers could follow along and go from blog to blog to blog, like a blog hop, and not just rely on each blogger's following. So I created this virtual book tour and she loved it. It was very successful. And she's like, you should do this as a company. And I thought, no, I really want to do this as a ministry because I really love Christian authors and I love Christian fiction and nonfiction. And a lot of authors have invested their time. So I wanted to invest in authors. So we started Celebrate Lit in 2015 as a ministry to help authors market their books. And our goal was to keep marketing as reasonable as possible. My daughter had graduated from high school and was starting her bachelor's in English. So I brought her in, and eventually we grew so big that I brought my middle daughter in to help us as well. And so what we did was we started virtual book tours, like I said, that go from blog to blog to blog. We have about 300 bloggers that blog for us. And what I love about it is these bloggers have a heart for authors and they love doing this. So each blog stop, it's 14 days. So there's always a minimum of 14 stops. And at each stop, there is either a review or an interview. And we do that because we want readers to come. We want there to be new content each day that makes readers want to come and check out the tour. Also, there's a giveaway for each tour that the author provides. And that's important. That giveaway is important because readers will go and they will enter each day by going to each blog stop. And so it draws those readers to the tour. Right now, we're averaging over 700,000 views per tour. And that's because we also do some specialized marketing as well. And we've done specialized marketing since we've begun. So we've built up a huge following. Some of our bloggers, each one of them will hit over 100,000 per book tour just on their one blog stop because we've helped them build up. And also we have authors who aren't even on I'm sorry, not authors, bloggers who aren't on the tour who also share information and tweet the information. So we just have a great team of people who love Christian authors and love readers. And so For a blogger, our goal is to, as Celebrate Lit Ministry, our goal is to connect authors with readers, and bring them together. A blogger's goal is the same, but they have a duty to the author to review their book, but they have a duty to their readers as well, who follow them, to recommend books to them that they would enjoy. So that's basically what a tour is. And in a nutshell, you could also check out any of our tours at celebratelit.com and see what tours are going on. We typically have, unless we're on vacation, we typically have about 6 tours going on each week.
Thank you. Thank you for what you're doing. I will have in our description your link to your website, and I also have some of the background details, a little bit about your ministry and some of what's involved. I went to my public library day before yesterday, and I was chit-chatting with one of my former high school students. And I said, I love suspense books, but I can't do the gory. It gives me nightmares. Can you give me some recommendations? And she was so sweet. She brought me a book that had about vampires. And then she brought me a book about how to sell a haunted house. And then she brought me a book about an exorcist. And, she was doing her level best to bring me something that I would enjoy. And I didn't really know how to explain to her with some of the faith-based things. There are just some things like with a cult that I'm not comfortable reading. It's not a judgment, it's just where I am. So I noticed in your website that the titles that you accept may not have profanity, may not have overt sexuality. They need to have a plot that's in keeping with Christian principles. And I admire that stand, because it's getting harder and harder to read for entertainment, but also find something that's not necessarily going to compromise what we should have in our Christian walk.
Yeah, and we found that was one of the reasons why I started blogging, is just because something says it's Christian fiction doesn't always align with traditional Christian principles. And so that's one thing that's been really important to me, is to, and it doesn't mean that all of us as believers I come from a Reformed background. So I hear to, more of the Reform perspective. But when I say like Christian traditional principles, it doesn't mean that we can't differ in, not the gospel. We all stand for the gospel, but like what we call them little D doctrines, infant baptism, things like that, we might differ on, and that's okay. But, as believers, there are certain things that we all agree on, or should agree on biblically. And I think those are important. So you could come to our, you can come to our site and know that what we're recommending are safe books. And that was not only important just for readers, but for authors too, because, I can't tell you how many authors have come to me and said, I did this promo where they put me in a magazine, and here is my wholesome Christian book next to, we joke around about like, Fabio on the book cover. And she said it was just really uncomfortable because I can't send my readers to that magazine because of what other books are included on that, inside that magazine. So for us, it's really important for you to know, as an author, the books that you will be next to, our Christian or clean fiction. Those are the only books we accept. And that was just my heart from the beginning, is that I wanted it to be a safe place for readers. Now, bloggers, when you tour a book, bloggers come from their own, each have their own set of beliefs. So sometimes, like, Just an example might be divorce. There are people who differ on if that's okay. And if a blogger feels strongly that that's not biblical and it's in the book, they might mention it, because they have a duty to their readers. Their readers follow them because they a lot of times align with the same beliefs. But I think that's good for authors as well, because if you have someone buy your book who differs on you and that belief, then reviews your book, you're going to get a negative review. You want readers who are following your beliefs and will enjoy your book, and
Yeah, I
you gain
think
a reader for life.
you make a valuable point, and I think integrity is essential. I
Yeah.
want a reviewer to say what he or she truly believes, and if there's an element of discomfort, to disclose that. And I also
Yeah.
think that as writers, sometimes we're so sensitive. We've invested months, sometimes years in creating a work that we feel like the Lord has called us to share. But we also need to be receptive that there will be different viewpoints. And I love that you have Celebrate Lit as a ministry. So we're not, I mean, I'm hoping that my fiction title, Who Brought the Dog to Church, I'm hoping that that's a ministry. One of the sub themes is about domestic violence and how does the church approach that topic? There are no graphic scenes, but there are so many people who are hurting. How do you tackle a sensitive topic where you're not just shallow and hitting the wave tops, but you're actually probing something where you can bring the love and truth of God forward?
I think that's so true. And I think two things in that. One thing is a lot of times when people leave negative reviews, I find that more readers buy books based on negative reviews than positive reviews. Because, like, if someone said to me, "Oh, this, say for your book, Who Brought the Dog to Church, this is such a heavy book. It deals with such a heavy topic. I was looking for a more lighthearted book." I would be like, that's the book for me, because I don't want lighthearted topics. I want to get in and get into the meat and deal with hard topics. And so, a lot of times people view negative reviews as, oh, that's so terrible. But a lot of times they're good for you, because they also validate your good reviews. Because people who have only 4 or 5 star reviews, a lot of times readers are savvy. They'll be like, are those all their friends and family reviewing that book? That's why they got 4. It's rare that you have a book that doesn't have at least 1 3 star. So it kind of validates. So don't look at negative reviews as, oh, this is such a terrible thing. A lot of times they're really good for your books. And also the second thing I would say is that I look at fiction as like Jesus telling parables. Jesus ministered to people and he shared to people by telling parables. And a lot of times books are like, especially books that deal with a hard topic, can be a balm to a believer's soul, because they might have gone through abuse, and or they might have gone through losing a loved one, or whatever the topic might be, and they are hurting and they need Christ. But it's hard, especially when you're a new Christian, to go through the Bible and say, okay, what verses, what can, without having someone disciple you. A lot of times a Christian fiction book can be like a parable and be that balm to a Christian's soul who is hurting and just needs the love of Jesus to comfort them. Or also, I have found sometimes a book has taught me, like, God has used it to convict me. And I'm like, ooh, I need to work on that. Like, so I think a lot of people who won't really delve into the Bible, and I'm not saying that I'm the delving
They
into the
don't
Bible is
know.
very important and we should be delving in, but people who won't, a lot of times, are who aren't like haven't gotten into the practice yet, will pick up a fiction book. Also, I found that non-believers will pick up a Christian fiction book because they know they're clean. They know that they don't have language and sexual content. And just because they're not Christian doesn't mean that they are for all of the content that secular books have. And I've seen people come to know the Lord
Mm.
through Christian books. And so I think this is such an important thing. So I think there's a place for all kinds of books in the Christian world. Sometimes we need, a book that's lighthearted and, just a fun read to take us out of where we're hurting. And sometimes we need a deep theological Christian fiction book that really is a balm to our soul, or where the Lord uses a 2x4 to kind of knock us upside the head and say, hey, you need to be working on this.
I
So,
love your insights. A question would be, as a new author, I was so delighted to get book contracts. It's like, whoa, I heard you right, Lord. I'm supposed to be doing something. So I had the nonfiction on encouragement, and then the fiction that is lighthearted, but also addresses some deeper issues in a small hometown community. But what I didn't know, and what I'm learning from veterans like you, is sort of like the business side of it. Once the book has been released, or even before it's released, how do I share the news? How do I network beyond my sphere of influence? And there are business concerns. I know we've got the book tours coming up in February, and there are bloggers that are committing their time, they're volunteering their reading space, their personal leisure to review my books. They're not asking for any payment, but they're delighted to get a print copy of the book. So I need to factor that in to my promotional budget. I need to be able to mail those print copies to them physically. So there's a lot on the business side that aspiring authors want to consider and think about. And sometimes, just rushing into a contract, the fastest book was under contract, I think from contract to distribution was about 19 months. So that gave me 19 months of preparation to start setting a little bit aside for promotion, setting a little bit aside, did I want to make a bookmark for a book festival? So those are things, your ministry helping us is invaluable, because I couldn't do it by myself. So there's an element of collaboration that, Lord, if you've called us to do this, we need help. So I wonder, as we kind of wrap up our taping today, and maybe we'll do another session if you like, or other, what would you advise, or what tidbit would you give to an author who maybe has just signed a contract or is going to a conference hoping to meet with an acquisitions editor? What advice would you give to that author to help them sustain this journey that's years, really?
So a few things I would say is, number one, don't wait till you are at the contract part to start marketing. You should be marketing as soon as you put, well, we would say pen to paper, but now it's, fingers to keyboards. You want to start marketing. That has been the biggest thing that I've seen with authors, is that they've got into marketing too late. And just in marketing in general, things run at least 6 months in advance. So like with our tours right now, we're working on March's tours and it's December, but I'm full. I think I have a couple spots left in May and a couple spots left in June. So I mean, you want to get on marketing early. And so people will say to me, well, what can I do while I'm writing? I don't have, this is my first book, what can I do? Well, you could be on interviews. You could be, one of the biggest things you could do is you could be reviewing other authors' books. And really, isn't that a biblical principle? Do unto others. You want people, wouldn't you love to have authors review your books? So you review theirs. You could always blog for me at Celebrate Lit, or you could blog for Barbara or Bethany House. They all take bloggers, read those books. And then as you're sharing, have your website and start building up your views. So that way, when your book releases, you already have people who are looking at your site. And I would recommend you reviewing books that are going to be similar to the books that you're writing. That's not to say that you can't review, if you're writing historical, you can't review a fantasy book here or there. But I'm just saying, you don't want to review only fantasy books, because then the people who are coming to visit your site typically won't be interested in your historical. So start marketing early and start marketing right away, and start setting aside money for marketing. Another thing I see is that a lot of authors think that once they get a book contract, their publisher is going to be doing all the marketing for them. They don't have to. They're going to be the next insert famous author here, and all because they've gotten a contract with this big publisher. But that is the furthest from the truth. Publishers will help you market, and they will do meet with you and talk about marketing, but you're going to be responsible for a lot of the marketing. And in fact, most of the time when you pitch to a publisher, they want you to have some sort of marketing plan in place. So start studying marketing, start looking at marketing plans, and what is a marketing plan, and what should you be doing for a marketing plan. Those are all really important things that you can be doing as you're writing. And as you're writing, share. I had an author who was writing a book. It was a historical fiction. She had a person with a stick, and he was reaching up to a window, and he was, it was like you could see he was in the motion like this. And she's like, "Have you ever heard of a knocker? What was a knocker?" And then she explained that a knocker, before we had alarm clocks, people hired knockers to come wake them up in the morning. So for first story, they would knock on the door or the window and say it's time to wake up. But for second story people, they had this long stick and they would knock on the window. And she was like, "This is a knocker. I'm going to be using it in my upcoming book." Well, I'm like, I want to know what a knocker is, and I want to know how you're going to use it in your book. So that's things that you could be doing, is sharing little graphics and memes and things that you've created, and make them evergreen, what we call us in the marketing world, evergreen. Don't put on your graphic, "This book releases in February 2024. You just want a plain graphic. Plus, you don't want it to be a neon sign like "Buy my book." I only want you following me because I want you to buy my book. Think of your readers as friends. These are your friends that you're making, that are taking their time and their money to support you. So you're giving them these little tidbits of information about your book. So those are my best tips that I have for authors, is just market early. Don't be a neon sign like that. How you go to parties. My husband and I have a sign when we go to a party, and the person is in like real estate or a car salesman, and they start talking to you, and we'll kind of go, because you're stuck and you can't wait to get away, because that they're talking to you because they want to sell a car. They want to see if you want to sell your house. And what you don't want to be that person. You want to be the person who loves on readers. And I always think you cannot outgive God. So you are giving to your readers, and they will become your lifelong friends, and they'll give back to you.
Thank you, Sandra. That's some phenomenal advice that I really appreciate, and that you do have a heart for ministry, that we want to bring voices of encouragement, we want to bring hope, and we want to bring wholesomeness to a lot of places that are hurting. So thank you for participating with me. I hope we can do this again. I'll put in the description your contact information for your website if people want to blog or just look at some of the tours. And I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. It's been such a blessing. I really appreciate you and your heart for helping new authors.
Take care.
Take care. Bye.